ערב טוב, אני רוצה לקבל על הבמה שלנו למפגש עם האומנים אלכסנדרה סום ומאסטרו הרברט בלומשטט. Alexandra, the first time you came to us was 3 years ago, and you were 17 years old.
Yes.
And now you're all grown up, 21. I wanted to ask you, I mean, what's it like sitting on, performing on the stage with a bunch of guys like me who are your father's age, or the maestro who could be your grandfather's age?
Well, I was always the youngest everywhere I've been. I left my home when I was 10 years old. My parents were very brave to let me go. So I was always surrounded by people much older than me. That seems very natural. And the first time I played with orchestra, I was 12, with a big one. And so it's kind of natural. It feels weird for me. Once I played with a school orchestra, and it feels very strange. Some people like my age, and so I love it. I learn a lot from people older than me who have experience and who have played with so many great soloists, and I ask them for advice, and sometimes in the rehearsal they sit and listen to me and tell me what I can do better. So it's all about learning.
You said that all about learning. You did a very special thing this morning. This morning was your first master class.
Yes.
And how was it?
Well, I loved it. It was the first master class I gave.
At the Meta Buchmann School?
Yes, exactly. And my father was sitting in the audience, and I was more scared of that because he's my first teacher. So he was listening to what I was teaching, and it's actually more scary than playing yourself, because when you play, you're responsible for your ideas, your mistakes, whatever. And when you teach, you're thinking, oh my God, if maybe you tell them something that will change their life in a good or in a bad way. So everything you say, you have to think a lot. And
did you think that you actually made that kind of contact with some of the students today?
Yeah, I mean, they were very different, and I think they really connected well. They did everything I told them. And I mean, it's difficult to teach them not like what you want to do, but to help them express themselves, because that's the idea.
How many students were there?
3 today.
And how would you say was the level of the student violinists at the university?
Very good. I mean, very musical people. I was basically working more on technical things, small details, sometimes phrasing, pulsation, many different small details that they can do better. Most of them just don't have this idea of playing in big hall, and so when you practice just in your room, it's one thing, and when you come here, you have to exaggerate everything. And this kind of experience I try to share.
Mm-hmm. Now, you came this evening to the hall. You didn't come from the hotel, is that correct?
Yeah, it's right.
And this is your 3rd visit in Israel, where are you staying?
Well, this time I'm staying with a friend of mine. Her name is Paulina. She's playing in the orchestra, and everyone thinks we look very alike. So I don't know. She's a little bit older than me, and I stay with her because I'm always alone in hotels everywhere. And it's great when you have somebody you really love in one city. You can come after the concert, just share a glass of wine and talk, and talk about something which is not you. Because from a certain point, when you play concerts, it's all about you. People look at you, ask you questions, and it's just too much of yourself. You get sick of yourself.
So, and what do you think of Tel Aviv? I mean, are you out with Paulina every night after the concerts and things like that? No.
No, I try to sleep as much as possible, but just just reading and talking between the concerts and concentrating, and just.
Okay. Now, you are a BBC new generation artist. What does that mean?
Well, that means that for 2 years I can play with all BBC orchestras of the UK and record for the radio and play some chamber music with other musicians that won the prize as well. And it's a great opportunity because every month or second month I have to record something, which is either with orchestra or solo repertoire, and I'm never allowed to record the same thing. So it's a lot of things to learn, and it teaches you to learn things faster, because with my teacher, when I started learning Paganini, we worked for 4 years on one concerto, Beethoven 3 years, and then suddenly you have to do one concerto in 2 months, so it's you have to be flexible. And
Well, could we impose on you, and could we ask you to play something now?
Sure. I'll just play fourth movement from second Isaïe sonata, and it's called Les Furies.
Alexandra, thank you very much. I know you want to get ready for Mozart,
yes,
so we'll excuse you now.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Have a good concert.
Maestro Blomstedt, you always, you always sit so close to the soloist. I always sit far away. That's quite an experience, isn't it? Maestro, you were in 1953 conducting fellowship in Tanglewood. I was 1 year old at the time. You have a 60-year career of conducting. Is classical music changing? You were probably at Tanglewood with Kusevitsky, Bernstein, Aaron Copland, Lucas Foss. Those were the people who were important in America at the time. How is music different today?
Well, there's lots of development. Music is always in flux, always changing, and something for better, something for worse, we think. But it's always exciting. There's an enormous amount of talent today. Alexandera Soumm is just one example. That is a very good hope for future. I think there are also very, very serious young musicians today. They long for not only for virtuosic possibilities, they long for expression, long to say something, to commit something to their listeners. And this is wonderful. Also, the interpretation of older music is very different today than from it was 60, 70 years ago. I remember the days in Tanglewood very well, and I spent some time in Tanglewood also in recent years. Basically, there's not much difference in that. There are lots of talent around and amazing quality of the young musicians. Lots of young musicians play very good the new music, the modern music of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Astonishing results and with astonishing maturity also. When they play older music, that's not so easy. It's much more difficult to play Mozart than Isaïe, that we all just heard, because we expect something different. We expect not only pyrotechnics, we expect musical contents. We expect a message, something that comes directly from the soul. And new interpretations of older music has made lots of progress in the last 20, 30 years. So we certainly cannot play Mozart today as we played 50 years ago.
You say that new interpretations, but if tonight when we're listening to your Dvorak symphony, if we scratch a little bit, do we hear also Kusevitsky? Do we hear Metropolis? Do we hear conductors that you heard in the past, that you studied with?
Probably, but above all, I hope we hear Dvorak. I have heard Dvorak played not by Kusevitsky, because he died before I came to Tanglewood, but certainly from Metropolis, from Bruno Walter, from Toscanini, from Furtwängler, and their interpretation made a deep impression upon me. But we play Mozart differently today than they did 60 years ago. The new Mozart edition was not published yet. They played from editions that were 150 years old already at that time. Today we have new editions with lots of source critique. Many more sources have come up, and we know much more about some of the principles that governed their interpretation when the composer was alive.
So do you think that we're closer today to what the composer expected from that period than perhaps 60 years ago?
I think so. But we cannot, of course, never be really sure how they performed. We have no documents of sound documents, how Mozart played his own violin concertos. He was a good violinist, not only a wonderful pianist. He wrote those concertos also for himself. But we have no documents of that. We can only guess. But there are lots of sources that have come to surface in the last 50 years.
When you work with a young soloist like Alexandra, I wasn't here during the rehearsals. Do you kind of gently move her in that direction, or do you feel any kind of role as a teacher when you're on the stage, or you're only a performer? You let them do whatever they want to do.
There's always an element of learning when we play together, regardless of age. We learn from each other. And most of this is not done by actually putting the finger on certain spots, faster, slower, higher, lower. It's the way we commute the musical message that is transmitting to the players. And we learn from each other.
Maestro, I'd like to ask you some kind of personal questions. Are you a religious man?
Religion has always been a part of my life. My father was a pastor, and at home we always had family worship. We had very regular times. I remember I had a class comrade who came exactly at 8 o'clock, rang the bell at my home so we could go by bike to the school together. And quarter to 8 we had breakfast. And breakfast was always concluded by a scripture reading, a passage from the Bible. And then Father would say a prayer, and we would all pray together, Our Father that art in heaven, in unison. And then we rose, and then the bell rang, and my friend was at the door, and we went to school. So this was part of the daily routine. So when you ask if I am a religious person, that is ingrained from the very beginning. Mm-hmm.
But you are a member of a very, I think, a very special religion, which is exactly the same size, in fact, of the Jewish religion. If we're the 15 million Jews in the world, there are 16 million of your religion. Could you tell us a bit about your religion?
Well, my father was a pastor in an evangelical church, Seventh-day Adventist church. And they're not very different from most Protestant free churches.
If I could just say, the Seventh-day Advent is בשורה של יום השביעי, שזה זה קבוצה יחסית קטנה בתוך הכנסייה הפרוטסטנטית. Correct? It's within the Protestant church.
It's a Protestant church. Yeah. More or less similar to the Baptists or the Methodists, something like this, to the Lutheran church. But you can hear it in the name, Seventh-day Adventists. We keep the Sabbath. Because Adventists know that, of course, Jesus, our model, kept the Sabbath. He was a Jew. All the first Christians were Jews, and they kept the Sabbath. Only later, in the first and second, especially in the third and fourth century, they started to keep the Sunday. And many of the Christians at that time, they wanted to distance themselves from the Jews. They want to be separate. They don't want to be similar to the Jews. So they also kept another day. Take the day, the Sunday, the day the Lord rose. But there's nothing in the Bible, of course, that says that you should do that. The New Testament has not a word about Sunday keeping. So in a way, Sunday keeping started as a negative thing, to distance yourself from the Jews. Adventists don't want to distance themselves from the Jews. They want to be with the Jews. We have the same God. And the Sabbath is the holy day of the Bible.
So Friday and Saturday, I mean, you must have felt very much at home. When the Israel Philharmonic stopped working on Friday, you went home, had your day of rest.
Yes, I feel very much at home. The difference is that I think very few of the members in the orchestra go to the synagogue on Sabbath, but I always go to church on Sabbath.
But you worked in America for many years. Surely they came to you and said, Maestro, we have to rehearse we have a concert Friday night, or we have to rehearse Saturday morning, or we need a special rehearsal before the concert on Saturday or something. How did you deal with that?
Well, in the beginning you have to be quite stubborn. Stubborn is perhaps a negative word. To be consequent, so that your colleagues really know that you are serious about it. I never rehearse on Sabbath. That is hard work. Right. We love our work. We love to rehearse on any day of the week, but Sabbath is Sabbath. We don't work on Sabbath. I don't work on Sabbath. But a concert is not work for me. A concert is almost like a religious service. It's giving to our public something that they long to hear. It's really a worship service to the glory of God, and I could not refuse to glorify God on Sabbath. Well, that's a special day. We should do it even more than.
All we need is a whole week of Sabbath. That would be much nicer. Do you also observe any special dietary laws?
Well, yes. Perhaps not as strict as the Jews do, but I would never imagine eating pork. But so does not the Muslims either. So there's nothing that is special. That makes good sense, I think, not to eat pork. I'm a vegetarian, and not many Jews, I think, are vegetarians, but I'm sure some are. There's certainly nothing in the Bible that says that you should be a vegetarian. Jesus ate fish. I'm sure he also ate meat. I don't drink alcohol. I'm sure Jesus drank wine, but I do it for health reasons. One of the principles of the Bible, of the New Testament especially, is that our body is the temple of the Holy Ghost. So we should use our body in a sensible way so that the Holy Ghost have something nice to live in. So that's why I'm a vegetarian, because I think that's the most healthy food.
If we could, we were talking a bit before about bringing the message to the audience. You know, I see you standing in front of the audience, in front of the orchestra. You're at least 20 years older than any of us in the orchestra. You have so much energy, and every night you bring this energy to the concerts. Do you have a secret?
No, really, I don't. But when you ask this question, I remember a funny cartoon that appeared in Japan. I worked for a long time with the NHK Symphony in Tokyo. It's a wonderful orchestra. I've been their honorary conductor for 30 years. They are, of course, also interested in the same thing, and they ask me many times, where does this energy come from? And this cartoon showed a drawing of myself, and a mosquito was flying around me and had just got a blood sample. And a musician was behind the mosquito to get this mosquito to take this blood to the laboratory and see what was the secret. I think, first of all, I think this energy is not so much physical energy. I think Richard Strauss, who was a wonderful composer and a wonderful conductor, he said, the conductor should not sweat, the public should sweat. I think there's something about it. The energy that you speak of, I hope you in the orchestra and also my audience, that this energy is mostly a spiritual energy, not muscular energy. I have experienced that the more the conductor moves on the podium, the less the orchestra gets interested. They think even if they are so nice, they don't say it. Well, let him do our gymnastic, his gymnastic. We play Beethoven. The energy is a spiritual energy. And I must say this is above all, I think, a gift. I enjoy good health. but I cannot be proud of my health. I cannot say I'm healthy because I'm a vegetarian all my life, because I never smoke, I never drink alcohol. I think that might help, but that's not the secret. The secret is the good health is a gift. It's a gift of God. Many wonderful people who attain high age, become very old. Think of Churchill, for instance. He lived on whiskey and cigars. So above all, he had a good constitution that was given to him from birth. I think I have something similar, and I'm grateful for that.
Maestro, you know that I speak often to high school students before concerts, and somebody always asks me, you guys can all play in the orchestra, and the conductor gets up in front of you, and what does he really do? And sometimes, well, now I have a standard answer, but how would you answer that question?
Could you repeat the question once again to be really clear?
What does the conductor do? What do you convey to us which makes the difference between, which makes you necessary to us?
Well, in a way it's very simple. In other ways it's terribly complicated. It's very simple. Every musician has a stand in front of him with his part. He has to be able to read that part to perfection because he's technically well trained, and at the same time be open to what he hears from around himself in 100 other people in the orchestra, what they play. What he does not have, he doesn't have the score. He has only his own part. The job of the conductor, simply said, is to convey the knowledge of the score to each player. So each player said, now it's your turn, now it's your turn, now listen to him, now play a little bit softer, listen to him, now give more here because you are the most important. He has sort of be a mirror of the score. And the musician, I think, will respect the conductor when they feel he knows the score, he's right. There are many ways of interpreting the score, as many as there are orchestras and conductors. But basically, he must do what is in the score. If the score says fortissimo for the first violins and pianissimo for the first trumpet, he must convey that feeling to the musicians that they know it also. And if the musicians feel that he knows this and can transmit it to the orchestra, then they are very willing to follow him, because it is as if they had the score in front of them also. How this really works is very mysterious. To this very day, I have now conducted for almost 60 years. I still don't understand it fully. And I admire the musicians who are able to, at the same time, with the greatest perfection, play their parts and have an eye for the conductor at the same time. It's like it's a more admirable feat than a jongleur that has 7 balls at the same time in the air. How is that possible? That makes me, full of admiration and love for musicians. I don't think I could do that. Well, I can play the violin pretty well, but I have no experience in the orchestra. I have been only standing in front of. Well, I've been in the school. I was concertmaster of our university orchestra, but that's nothing compared to what the musicians are doing in the Israel Philharmonic today.
But Maestro, just one little point. You don't touch on the spiritual when you talk about, just now you talked about conducting, you talked about very technical things, about how we play together and knowing the score. And I promise you, if you didn't move tonight, we would play your Dvorak exactly the way you have taught us to play it. Could you say something about the spiritual side of conducting?
Well, the orchestra has a very direct idea of what the conductor stands for. I think you could testify to that with your enormous experience in the orchestra with so many conductors. It doesn't take many seconds for you when the man or the lady in front of you, the way he or she acts, gives the orchestra the impression he knows what he's talking about. He really feels what he wants. He's really serious. Or is he just up there to make himself important? The orchestra has you cannot hide anything for the orchestra. And it is also so between musicians in the orchestra, we cannot hide anything from each other when we play. If we play something, that requires the utmost serenity, and we play it as if we were giving a big show, it's contradictory. We don't believe in it. If you say, now I'm very serious to you, and you tell only trivial jokes, that might make sense. The same thing with a musician. If he pretends to be serious, but he is not serious, he just wants to show his own excellence, we don't believe in him because it's not consequential. But if there is harmony between the way a musician acts with or without instrument and the way he plays and performs, then you believe in it and you are willing to go along with that and you can be even moved by it.
Maestro, I assure you there are 105 musicians who believe in you and are moved by your performances. So, thank you very much. ערב טוב ותודה רבה. Maestro Blomstedt.
Thank you.